still watching NTV Sport Nights, and we are glad to have your company, reminding you that we are powered by DSTV, the home of Super Sport. Do get yourselves a decoder for only 89,000 shillings. Joining us right now is Mr. Justus Mugisha, a seasoned academician.
Lamina.
Academician and a very, very experienced sports administrator. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, madam.
Great to have you here. So do tell us, for those who are wondering, what is USSA in full?
USSA is Uganda Secondary School Sports Association.
And what does it do?
What it does, it manages sports, school sports, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports. Okay. And of course in line with the ASHU, which is the Association of the Head Teachers of Secondary School Head Teachers of Uganda.
Mm. So that is all secondary schools in Uganda from Kotido to Kisoro?
Yes, we for all secondary school, all competition in secondary schools in 17 different sports now are managed by us.
Oh, that's huge.
And we have structures right away from every district. Through zones and up to the national level. Actually in Uganda now we have 19 zones, and in those 19 zones, and then each of them has a different number of districts. Like when you go to Ankole zone, you find now it has about 14 districts, and then others like Wakiso. Wakiso is a district, at the same time it is a zone. Why? Because it has so many schools, the high school concentration, and also the schools there are performing so well in sports.
You said how many disciplines again?
About 17 disciplines now.
Okay, would you mind mentioning some of them for us?
Yes, of course. The main ones which we started with was football. Football, yeah. For boys first, now we brought in girls since 2005. Then we have basketball, we have volleyball, we have rugby, we have tennis, we have table tennis, we have athletics. All those. Recently, we also brought on one which is exciting everybody, dance sport.
Yeah, we hosted someone of dance sport.
Yeah, when we hosted the General Secretary of Dance Sports, I remember telling him on the show that you are the people he should be talking to, because you have a wide catchment and the right age group.
No, he talked to us.
Because you wouldn't do dance, for example, just as yourself.
No, I dance. But dance sport, you know, it's a sport. It is a sport like another. And we introduced it last year. And when we introduced it, wow. We introduced it on a trial, and it took all the funds.
The vibe must have been so high,
because our competitions
and their youths.
Our competitions are combined. We have what we call board games, one which we call Fresh Diary games, where we have a number of games, football girls, basketball, rugby, all those, we combine them together. So, and then we have what we call board games together with athletics, because we want students to go out of schools in a limited number of times. So we introduced it in a board games where we have netball, we have volleyball, and all those. And by the middle of everybody now was moving away from all the other games and coming to watch the dance sport, because it was a new game and very exciting.
You know, Justus, when Mabel mentioned how wide you are from Kotido to Kisoro, in there's a question that always bothers me. How many schools are actually members of USSA? Is every school welcome? Are there requirements to be a member? If they are, what are those requirements?
Now, when you are a school, which is recognized by the Ministry of Education and Sports through licensing, then you qualify to be a member at the district level. Okay. You qualify to be a member, you qualify to participate in all the games. And the good news now is that the Minister of Sports has directed that every school must participate in our games. So if in Uganda we have 20,000, I would say maybe 10,000 secondary schools, they are all members of a member of our member.
Okay. Then the other one, a follow-up question on that. there is public schools and private schools.
Yes.
Now, one of the things I sense when I go to secondary school sports is that they are very, very popular with the private schools, which are using them as a tool to market what they do. Haven't you left the public schools behind? Because if there's few of them, the schools I went to compete, Chibuli and Chitovu, but there are not so many other public schools.
But you are talking of the schools which are leading the delegation.
Okay.
Of we are taking 1,300 students to Rwanda, and I can tell you, all schools are represented.
But the other question, there aren't enough public schools that are competing. There is a lot of private schools.
The truth is that sports
is it down to cost?
The truth is that sports is not cheap. And for you to come up to the national level, you must have qualified and financed the team at all different levels. So when we talk of schools that may not have the resource, where the resources are low, they normally find problems, and especially also retaining the very good performing students, also not good performing athletes is also sometimes a challenge. But I can assure you that we have government schools, especially those government schools which even charge more school fees than what? Than private schools.
Okay.
And they are even doing much better. They have better facilities and they are doing much better. Except that now when we move to a game like, when you look at a game like football, apart from Chivuli, Kitovu, then you find that the others are not as competitive as the private school. But they do very well. And also we have been having a problem in our sport because we reached a point when some schools would use mercenaries.
I can imagine that was Daniel's question. You're pulling the rug from under
people
Daniel's
who are not supposed to pray.
Like
And now we have embarked on a program whereby we are removing them. And in so doing, we have a very serious campaign against mercenaries. And we have put some structures in place to flush them out. Believe me, this year, they found very big problems. They are, when I talk of those people who are not supposed to pray, they are people who are overaged. They remain in school.
What is the age group? What's the limit?
Our limit at the national level is supposed to be under 20.
Okay.
But you would find the people, so this year we are using prayers who were born in 2003 and above. But there are many prayers who were born before that, and whom you find in our games. Even after, because we now introduced an online registration system, we check on the pass slips, we check the date of birth. But because of our country, the registration at the birth is very, people forge.
Yes, that's right.
But we have now got means and ways of removing them. Last year we discovered a boy of 29 years.
29?
Yes.
Do you call him a boy? That's a man.
Yeah.
And he was praying. And he had even gone through the system and he was praying at the top level.
Oh.
Yeah.
And when we investigated, we found this guy was praying football very well. So when some schools saw him, he was not in school, they decided to take him back to P7.
P7?
Yes. Because what we use, the main document we use is the P7 pass slip. On the P7 pass slip, they put your date of what? Birth.
True.
So for you to pray, we would say you bring your pass slip. Because we would think that by the time you registered at P7, you did not know maybe you are going to become a good footballer, so you did not lie. But you see now, some schools have got ways of getting a footballer who is 20 years of age. They take him back to sit P7 and they register him as a kid of 13. So that means this person can play up to the age of 29.
Mr. Mugisha, I want to understand. We grew up watching the post-primaries, the football competitions across districts, and then you have the USS, the ball games, like you have categorized them. How different are those competitions? And then, the post-primaries, the Coca-Cola part of the USSR, and they recognized by you people?
Okay, maybe I can start from the beginning. Secondary school sport started here in Kampala. Started in Kampala region, actually.
In 1987?
In 1887 there. and it was spearheaded by the Kawases and Sentongos and what have you. So they first played as Kampala. And then after playing
Sponsored
as Kampala,
by UTV.
by UTV, yes.
UTV at the time.
Now, when they, after praying, then the whole country became excited, and the whole country wanted to join them. So they started what they called you called it post-primary, Uganda post-primary, because at that time, any institution which was post-primary was welcome to pray. Technical schools and what have you. After primary, those ones which would start after primary.
Yes.
But now, in the year, when we come to around 2000 and about 1998 there, then the schools, of course, were very many, and we found out that they had different programs. So we decided that let's have a competition for only secondary school students. Because of the age, because you would find that in technical schools and what have you, people would be over age, they would go there when they are old and what have you. So we moved it from there. Now we call it Uganda Secondary School. The association, we called it Uganda Secondary School Sports Association in around 2001, 2002. Now, among the sponsors of our games used to be Coca-Cola. Now, Coca-Cola was, because they were putting in a lot of money and only in boys football. And they had a man called Kennedy Mutenyo, right away from the beginning.
He's a viewer visual.
Big viewer. He organized these games so I would say so well, and put in a lot of energy, and football left all the other games. Now, at that time, we would play each sport on its own. Football would go out, play alone. Volleyball goes out, plays alone, and so on and so on. Until the Department of Physical Education and Sports was formed, which is the one responsible for running secondary school as far as the Ministry of Education is concerned. So these games were now got from National Council of Sports and brought back to the main ministry under the Physical Education and Sports. So we had a man called Dan Tamunsijiri. And together with him, he discovered that when schools, children are moving out all the time in a coordinated way, it's not good. And he advised us and worked with him on that, that we should now combine the games into what I called you, ball games 1, ball game, and ball games 2, so that we can move out in a regulated manner. And when we move out, it becomes economically viable. Because we could now, because the matters at that time, government was not putting in money, but you would collect some funds from participants and then make a tournament run. And when you bring all of them at a go in one place, others are playing volleyball, others are playing netball and what have you, then it made sense. And the schools liked it. Then, in those tournaments, you would find that children would come, every school would be cooking on its own. And at the end of the day, there was a risk of fire and what have you. So we decided to have what we call central feeding. So we go to a school, it feeds us and what have you. So there is one body. As far as secondary schools are concerned, there is only one body, Uganda Secondary School Sports Association, and it is the one in charge of all those games. Recently, when Coca-Cola pulled out, we came in now, we are the ones running the game. And actually, because it had a very good base, I want to thank all those who participated, especially Kennedy Mutenyo, Mr. Rafael Bwire, and so on that participated. Of course, we are working with them. And now it had already established a good base, everybody is interested, and we are running the games in a very good way and at a very high level.
Briefly, recently there were games in Fort Portal.
Yes.
There was football, then there were other games happening at the same time in Barra.
Yes.
So why?
What I called ball games 1, what happened was is that when we divided ball games 1 and ball games 2, football had to remain around because at that time it was being sponsored by Coca-Cola. We got a sponsor who is Fresh Diary. Now, Fresh Diary, we made a contract with him, and the contract we made was concerning only those games which were in ball games 1. And I told you those games are basketball, rugby, volleyball. No, volleyball is ball games 2. Tennis, table tennis, and then what we call racket games. Now, those ones, they took place in Mbarara. They were hosted by Intare.
Yes.
But at the same time, because we want to use the holiday as much as possible, we put football in Nyakasura.
Yes.
yeah.
And normally we make sure that when we go to the Western, we take all those games in what?
The West.
In Western, so that a bus can come from Maguru, drop some in
Nyakasura,
and then come back to Mbarara.
Or the other way around.
So they were very successful. But the fresh diary games, for them they take only 9 days, while the football now, which now doesn't have a sponsor.
Oh.
They don't have a sponsor. Now for this takes 14 days. And it has 64 teams. And it is a very big, very big and very vibrant.
Isma, I think you have some messages online.
Yeah, we posted on X, like it's called. We posted on the app X, and we asked, were you involved in sports during high school or not? What did you see that you feel the administrators of the school sports today can do to improve that layer of development? Because that layer of development for sports, for athletes in our country, is very, very important. Most of them are in school, so playing is very important. Then some of the things, the responses, Justus, that we've got from some of our viewers. Josh Omwagizi says, all schools should have at least 3 sports facilities, plus room for indoor sports. I wish my Chambogo College had chess as an alternative sport back then. However, I know the Chambogo College League. I wish for this soon. Then someone, Okumu Ojeo, says, schools want children to start studies at 5 and end at 9. What do you expect? I prefer schools starts early and ends by 3 daily to allow children build their talents. Then he goes on to say, I wish I went to Turkey. And I went to Turkish Light Academy, I think it means.
Yes.
And I can give them an applause in that sector. They leave class at 4. Every class has a pitch, a ball, which when punctured, you can access another. Administration should take sports like any other development. A happy child is a concentrated one. Just as I think this also raises something, since you people are working with the Ministry of Education and Sports, there is something about how much time students or children have to go and play. How do you harmonize the calendar? There's a lot of talk about the new school curriculum the Ministry of Education and Sports is working on, and should be, some of the class stuff is already underway. So how do you harmonize that with the sport that we are passionate about?
The truth is that, you know, as I told you, I'm a teacher.
Yes.
I run one of the schools, Standard High School, Uganda.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher of math and physics, and I've looked at the new curriculum. It's a very good one. Why? Yes, it's practical, and it leaves time for not only sports, but any other, what we used to call co-curricular activities. And also now, believe me, when I started teaching back in 1992, and we started the school in 1994, a parent would bring a kid and tell you, I've brought my child here, I don't want this kid to play. But now, someone brings a kid to my school, and he tells you, I've brought this kid to your school, to Standard High School, Rosanna, because of sports. There's one who even told me, I want him the sport 80% and academics 20%. Wow. I told him, no.
Balancing.
We shall balance accordingly, but we shall not give 80 sports. But it is very surprising. Parents have now looked at, they now look at sports differently, not the way they used to look at it then. And then the other good news is that any school, be it private or government, that it does not get involved in sports, its rating will definitely continue to get eroded. They reach a point when they can no longer have students applying to those schools. It is the schools that involve in sports and also involve in academics and do well in both that are now schools of the future.
I wanted, yes, Rema, and then we'll bring Clive in after you.
Mr. Justus Mugisha, about schools and sports, we know that we need the infrastructure to go about the sporting in schools. How have you, as USSA, that association, help the schools with facilities and the infrastructure that can help them, help the learners engage in sport and maybe feed the association?
Yeah, I was elected last year in August,
yes,
and I've just made 1 year. And if I will show you my election manifesto, it was an 8-point, and one of them was about infrastructure. And on the infrastructure, what I was saying and what we are trying to do is that we are going to have the minimum qualification for a school to exist. And I want to say a school must have infrastructure for sports as a minimum criterion for it to be awarded a license. And the good news is that we have a very useful minister, Honorable Peter Wang. Yes. We have a commissioner of physical education and sports,
who has been involved in.
Yes, he has been involved. He was the head teacher of the USSE school, which would even compete up to international level. So things are working out. And you see, there's one thing that has happened which has never happened. The Ministry of Education has this time got, you know, they used to have to be first IDA, second IDA. Most of the schools were built under those loan schemes and what have you. But this time around, those ones would only be for classes, for laboratories and what have you. But this time around, 100 schools in this country are going to be renovated, the old ones, and part of what they are going to work on is to make sure that all those schools, all the government schools, each of them will have enough infrastructure. That we are told by the minister. And it is the cost for each school is going to be given more than $1 million, which will make sure, and then a good component of that will have to go to sports. So we are moving, but there are already schools which have exactly no infrastructure. And we are advising them. We have got in seminars and what we say, you don't need a square mile for your school to have infrastructure. As long as you have a school where cars can park, you can turn the parking lot into a basketball court.
Okay, we're going to bring Clive in here. Clive, do you have any question for Mr. Mugisha?
Yes, first of all, good evening. Happy to see you. My questions are two, and I'll make them brief. First of all, if you could help and elaborate and let us know the goals and objectives of the association, but then also, is he impressed with the level of talent development at that level? If not, how do they plan to address it?
Okay. Thank you so much for those very important questions.
Goals and objectives of the association. What every single day you walk into that USS office, the focus, this is what we are supposed to do.
Definitely our focus is what you brought in at the end also.
Talent development.
Talent identification and development. That's our aim #1. And then, of course, for us to succeed in that, there are many other things which must do. We have to do technical development. We have to run competitions. We have to make sure that kids, even when we go for competitions, the children do not only compete sport-wise, but they learn other skills. And definitely, even as we compete, we make sure that kids have to get enough playing time, and we have to make sure that they get enough international exposure. And the good news is that, as you have been seeing, because I've been with you, these days we are doing very well. When I turned to talent identification and development, we made the research. And we did it. You know, I've been in USSA for a long time as a treasurer. We made the research and we said, in Uganda, why don't we do very well internationally as far as sports is concerned? We start, but at the end we don't do well. And then we discovered two things. One is that the children, they start late. They start late. Most kids start on the sports. They come secondary, they have never seen a ball. They have never seen a basketball. And then they start. By that time, others are already perfecting their what?
Their skills.
Their skills. That's as far as the playing is concerned. But we also discovered that if you are to develop the sports industry, you don't only look at the player. Actually, the player is a small thing. You also look at all the enabling. Because for someone to play very well, he has to have to play on a good surface. You must have very good coaches. And also those good coaches we talk of must also start early. Because what has been happening in Uganda is that the coaches normally wait until they have retired. Then they look around, they find they have nothing to do. Then they say, okay, but I think I can coach.
Yeah.
By that time, you find maybe they neglected education. These days, you need to be a coach, you need to read the... So what we did started what we call capacity building. And I'm glad to tell you that this, beginning with December, up to now August, we have so far trained about 3,000 students. 3,000 students, young students, to become coaches, to become referees, and to become young media officers.
People, yeah. Those who go back to their schools and report that our school competed, and these are the results, and can present it to their
and now we have even taken it to a higher level. As you can know, like this year we had 3 schools which represented Uganda in the World Schools Football Championship in Morocco.
Yeah, we had it here.
Yes. And the 3 schools, we made sure that they go with those young reporters.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, right now we are going to Rwanda. Now, every team would say for example, football team bring 20 players.
Okay.
Now we say, because we have trained enough young reporters, we say bring 20 players plus 1 young reporter. So that your young reporter is part of the team. And then some schools have liked it. They have bought very good equipment.
Yeah.
These kids are doing very well. When you come to us very soon, you are going to run out of jobs.
That's exciting.
Why? Because these kids have started at a young age.
Yeah.
Sure.
They are growing up liking the thing. And you know, with these days now, you know,
Social media.
I like the topic about capacity building because growing up, the games masters who liked sport would go out and train all the sports. He's a football coach, he's an athletics coach.
Netball.
They coach the netball. I don't even know whether those teachers had even done the most basic course.
They were just passionate.
They are just passionate about sports. So he walks up. Today he trains the football team, tomorrow is with the handball team, the next day is with athletics. And then in the end, of course those who are naturally talented end up good. The rest of them, you wait until you turn 16 to interact with the coach.
And actually
your final words as we go. Oh.
First deliver the good news.
I wanted to give you the good news. The good news is that we did not only train the students.
Yeah.
We are training teachers. The games teachers. And also the games teachers, some of them, you know, they become games like me. I'm a math and physics teacher. But I love sports.
Yes.
So when we get those ones who are still young, we bring them together, and every time we have trained them. And we are not making training only in Uganda, we are making it across the what? The country. And one last research which we made, we found that even when we did that, we found that at secondary it is very late. Because we are talking of Uganda Secondary School Sports Association. We found that by that time it is too late. However much organized we might become, it may not help Uganda. We have now gone down and made should I call it an alliance? We have now allied with the primary schools. We are going to form one apex body, not one body because we operate in different circumstances, but we make one apex body, and now we are going down, starting with August. We have a championship for board games for primary schools in Mbarara, and what we are saying, about 146 districts will be represented in Mbarara, and we are saying that every district, for each sport they are going to bring, they bring with 2 teachers. And then those 2 teachers will be doing capacity building when others are doing what are doing competing. In the hope that when those teachers go back, they will start teaching those kids in the right way. They will start identifying talent and developing, so that by the time they come to secondary school, we just add on. And I can assure you, Uganda, if we continue like that, with the financing and the recognition we are getting, Uganda is going to be number one.
We have a final word from Clive. Yes, Clive.
Yes, I don't know whether Mr. Justus closely follows what happens on ground. If it doesn't, then the people who give him the reports, I think, give him the wrong reports in his capacity as a chairman of the association. Because I'll give you an example. You'll have a student who studies on a scholarship for 6 years, from senior 1 to senior 6. This kid gets another scholarship at the university, and for all the 6 years, he goes to the university, and actually they have to take him through all the basics of a particular sport is playing. Like how you'll take a P3 or P4 kid through the alphabet, because they did master it at kindergarten. And this has happened in disciplines like volleyball. This has happened in disciplines like basketball. Universities like UCU, KI, and the others wouldn't be signing foreigners or wouldn't be giving scholarships to foreign athletes if really the Secondary Schools Association was doing what they are supposed to do in terms of talent development. So for me, I think in that area we are lacking. Today, the biggest sport everyone follows is football, and virtually 95 to 99% of all the players are playing football today at national level are products of the schools association. But time and again, we've sat here in studio and we've complained how most of our athletes are lacking technically and the other aspects of the game. So I don't think Mr. Mugisha is being fair to himself when he says that they have done a good job in talent development. Identification, yes, but development, I think that's an area that they need to pay a lot of attention to.
Okay, I think I agree with him on one hand. Maybe in the past, we did not do a good job. But you know, the best person is the one who realizes that he's not doing well, because I said the research we did discovered a number of issues. And those are some of the issues that our capacity, our technical development in schools was lacking. Why? Because we do not have qualified coaches. We do not have even coaches. We may have even coaches who are qualified here, but who do not have the capacity to read more and scale higher. And what we are saying is that we are collecting that by making sure that we start with the children, so that the future may not be like the present and may not be like the past. Okay. But I'm very happy with your statements. It shows that you are following the game. And since you are following the game and the games, I am very sure that very soon you'll be coming here to preach the good news of what we are doing in secondary schools.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mugisha. We hope to have you back to let us know how far the talent development has gone. NTV Sport Nights returns after this break.